Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to an update, a recap on all the round of 64 games. We've also got brackets to look at. Where are my brackets, at right now in terms of percentile? There's no reason to worry unless there's a few different things I want to talk about. I know some people picking Nevada to go deep. I don't hate the pick. I understand you want to be bold, and Nevada and Dayton, it's just ridiculous, but you can see, I believe this might have been a stream bracket I did doing decently, and then this, I think, might have been a speed run bracket. But my main bracket, the 71st percentile, it's no big deal. As long as you still have all your Final Four teams, most of your Elite Eight teams, you will be fine, and that's exactly what I have. Just looking through this really quickly on yesterday, of course, I did get BYU wrong. Not a big deal because I have BYU losing in the next round. I do think Illinois should beat Duquesne. Congratulations to Duquesne, though. Illinois correct, Washington State correct, Iowa State correct. Would be fun to have this upset correctly picking Washington State over Iowa State. I did get the Kentucky-Oakland pick wrong. I'm going to recap every game, go deeper into it. Oakland made a bunch of threes. Listen, I told people, there were a lot of people in my chat, in my live streams, having Kentucky go to the Final Four. I said, don't do it. I had Kentucky unfortunately go to the Sweet 16, but that's certainly not a bracket buster or anything like that. The only way you should be pissed about Kentucky is if you had them in the Final Four or in your national championship. That's an issue if you did have that, and I advised against it. But if you had Kentucky even in the Elite Eight, it doesn't matter. With the Final Four, the way the points are done, there's such a bonus in having the Final Four teams. That's really all that matters. So I did get the NC State, Texas Tech pick wrong. There's really nothing I can say about that. That was just a wrong pick. Gonzaga and McNeese. Listen, there were a lot of people pissed off last night. When a team goes, 8 of 10 from 3 in the first half, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not going to say that's why Gonzaga won, but if you shoot 80% from 3 in the first half, you're not going to lose, let's be honest. Kansas did beat Samford barely. Wow. When I saw that game, Kansas was up by a lot more than that, but Kansas ends up beating Samford. People picking Samford because of the injuries, I kind of get lucky there. I picked Kansas right on Sunday night after bracket release, and I said I probably would have changed the pick, but I still get the points there with Kansas moving on. Hopefully Kansas can beat Gonzaga. Not that I think the Gonzaga win against McNeese was a fluke, but I don't think they're going to shoot nearly as well as they did. Oregon over South Carolina, correct? Well, so I have a perfect region. Oh, no, I don't. I thought I did there for a second. Oregon over South Carolina, Creighton over Akron. Those two, not that they were obvious because Oregon, I guess, was a lower seed, but Oregon was like 1-point favorite. Creighton, obviously, kind of a closer game at the beginning. I thought that game was going to be close, and Creighton easily blew them out in the second half. Very boring game with Texas and Colorado State, and this is kind of the big matchup that I was talking about potentially happening, and it is going to be happening. It is Texas versus Tennessee. So, I mean, Tennessee, man, I think people have to understand with games like this where a 2 seed blows out of 15 or a 1 seed blows out of 16, don't read too much into it, because I've seen multiple times where a 1 seed will blow out a 16 and then lose in the second round. Same thing with a 2 versus a 15. Yeah, they annihilated St. Peter's, though. That's good. I've got Kentucky in my Final Four. I'm a little worried about this Texas-Tennessee matchup, but you do have to say Texas only scoring 56 points. I guess they had good defense, but, you have to feel good about Tennessee. And then you do have Arizona kind of crushing Long Beach State in the second half. The Dayton-Nevada game, I'll actually dive into it and see just how do you blow a 17-point lead with 7 minutes left? It makes no sense. A lot of us, deciding to go with Nevada just because Nevada's better and they were 1.5-point favorites even as the 10 seed. You did have Michigan State win, so that's kind of the whole Izzo thing. I did pick Michigan State. Dude, North Carolina, I realize North Carolina's a very weak 1 seed. They've got to be pissed off. They're 3-point favorites as a 1 seed in the second round. 3-point favorites, and it's the whole Izzo thing, the MSU thing. But Michigan State was such an enigma. They were so hard to rank. I guess I could kind of understand it. So you look at my Final Four, Arizona over UConn. Arizona's into the second round. Houston over Tennessee. Tennessee's into the second round. And then both my 1 seeds are obviously going to win. So all of my Final Four teams, they're going to be carried onto the round of 32, we would expect. So really, that's all you need to be worried about. And then when it comes to the actual recap, see, this is kind of annoying. They don't, it's based by seed. It's not based by time of the game, which is annoying. But North Carolina over Wagner, very irrelevant game. It's your typical 1v16. I think one person asked me about it in chat during my 2.5 hour or whatever it was live stream, so kind of funny. Arizona Long Beach State, another pretty irrelevant game. Long Beach State was hanging in there in the first half. Analytics would suggest they are worse than a few 16 seeds, but they didn't have a terrible showing. They were 20.5-point underdogs. They lost by 20. Iowa State over South Dakota State. You know, there was a little time frame there early in the second half where it was a 4-point game. I mean, this game started off Iowa State up 15-3. It looked like it was going to be a slaughter. And South Dakota State kind of came back, and then Iowa State went on like a 12-0 run and completely shut it down. I believe this was a 16.5-point spread, and they won. Wow. Yeah, they won by 17 in a 16.5-point spread. Tennessee just destroys St. Peter's 40-26 in the first half. Certainly a very dominant win for Tennessee. St. Peter's, I said they were the worst 15 seed again, and this time they finally proved it. The last time I said that, they beat Kentucky. You do have Creighton over Akron. Kind of a good game in the first half, but Creighton pulls away pretty easily. Illinois Morehead State, very similar to Creighton Akron, close in the first half, and then Illinois just crushed Morehead State, not even close to a 14-3. I told people that was not going to happen. Here you have Oakland beating Kentucky 80-76. Listen, if I was a Kentucky fan, I'd be very angry. I'm not going to lie. This is, 15-31 from three. I mean, they did struggle from the free throw line, 13-23, but it's tough. And then Kentucky was 9-28. It's unfortunate if you're Kentucky, but that's the recipe for an upset. You make 15 threes, you shoot almost 50%. It is what it is, and I hope people did not pick Kentucky to go deep. But guys, people say their bracket's ruined because they had Kentucky in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. It's just not true. You have to understand how the points work and how valuable having the Final Four teams are. So if you pick Kentucky to the Final Four, your bracket still may be technically okay if you have the other three teams correct, or at least two teams and the national championship correct. But yeah, it is a catastrophic loss there. Kansas ends up beating Samford. Again, Samford scores 51 in the second half to try and come back. A lot of people down on Kansas. It's understandable, but they did get the win. Gonzaga destroys McNeese. I mean, I don't know what they finished, McNeese was 5 of 22 from 3. Gonzaga did finish 10 of 21, so they cooled off a little bit. Listen, when you go 8 of 10 in the first half from 3, you're not going to lose. I don't know what to say. Duquesne beats BYU. Duquesne really controlled this game. I know some people were arguing about the refs and stuff. BYU was just not good. I don't know what to tell you. BYU, it's crazy too, because BYU's better than a 6 seed, or at least they were in the regular season in the Big 12, and they still put on that showing against Duquesne. You can't really call it a crazy upset because it's just an 11-6, but you did also have Oregon over South Carolina. A lot of us liked that. Oregon scoring 53 points in the second half, really controlling South Carolina for much of that game. NC State beating Texas Tech. The bracket is wide open now for NC State. If you did have them into the Sweet 16, based off of Kentucky's loss, NC State now will face Oakland, I believe. And you have to understand, do we really think Oakland is going to be that hot from 3? Maybe they will. I mean, Oakland could easily beat NC State. It's March Madness. It's an 11 versus 14. But still, that's a nice draw for NC State in the second round. Dayton beats Nevada. It's crazy. Inconceivable. Let's see the win probability on this. It got up to around 99.5. Yeah, so, listen, Nevada analytically was better. Wow, I'm surprised BPI actually gave Dayton a higher chance. I believe Nevada was 1.5. Yeah, Nevada was 1.5 point favorites. And I just thought Nevada had much more momentum. And they did, and they were crushing Dayton. And I was like, oh, I've been proven right. It's ridiculous. I mean, Colorado State drops an 11-burger in the first half. It's sad to see. 44 points. Just a horrible, horrible game. Washington State beats Drake. A lot of people liked Drake. I did have Washington State. It was a toss-up, and I get lucky there. They end up winning by 5. I do have Washington State beating Iowa State. I don't have a lot of faith in it, but I think it still could happen, a 7 over a 2. And then Michigan State beating Mississippi State, really controlling. That was the first game of the day right there. Moving on to the matchups today, just a little preview on some of these games. You've got a 9v8. So FAU now sitting -4.5. I think a lot of, this stupid thing is auto-playing. I think a lot of people romanticizing about FAU of last year. I have Northwestern winning this game. 4.5 is pretty big for an 8v9 game. Baylor should beat Colgate. You would expect. I do like San Diego State to beat UAB, but I do not think we've had a 12 over a 5 yet, so maybe it happens, but analytically UAB is really lagging in terms of a 12 seed. Will we get a 15 over a 2? Is it actually going to happen, or are we screwed? We'll have to see, but yeah, the last chance is Western Kentucky over Marquette. I did pick Western Kentucky to win this game because I wanted to predict a 15 over a 2. Let's hope it happens. It's happened to like the last 3 tournaments. Marquette sitting -14.5. It's going to be tough. I mean, that is kind of interesting. This is a 3v14 matchup, 14.5. This is a 2v15, 14.5. And tactically, Western Kentucky analytically is the best 15 seed. That's a 2 o'clock game. Stetson and UConn going to be a blowout. I mean, 26.5 point spread. New Mexico now sitting -2.5 against Clemson. Oh my goodness. Auburn -12.5 against. Yeah, so I mean, these games should go, unless there's that upset that I'm hoping. They should go. They should go by the book. Maybe a Colgate upset possibly happens. Obviously, a 1 versus 16 very likely not happening. This should be a good game. This 11 versus 6. I could see New Mexico though pulling away. I would guess Auburn would beat Yale relatively easily. And then we all have to hold our breath for Colorado, 1.5 point favorites. A lot of people have Colorado into the Elite Eight, and they're sitting -1.5 against, Florida. A lot of people have Florida into the Elite Eight, and they're sitting -1.5 against Colorado. This is an 8v9 game. This is probably when I'll go live again for this window, so these 4 games. A&M, Nebraska. Nebraska sitting -1.5. I have Nebraska winning that game, but it's just an 8v9 game. Vermont and Duke. Could we get another kind of blue blood upset at 7-10, just like we had last night? Duke -12.5. Grambling and Purdue. Purdue got basically the exact same start time as last year, I think. Didn't they play on Friday night at around 7:20 against a 16 seed, and now they're doing it again against a play-in? Yeah, Grambling. But they're 27.5 point favorites. And then the final window game there, it is Charleston and Alabama. People do like Charleston in an upset there. I think one of these games should be an upset, you would think. I don't know which one it's going to be, but Alabama does have bad defense. Longwood and Houston, this is the late night window. Houston -23.5. James Madison and Wisconsin should be a fun game. TCU and Utah State, with TCU -3.5. I actually have Utah State in that game, so I've got the underdogs in both the 8v9 games, and then I do have St. Mary's beating Grand Canyon. Kind of unfortunate they put that game, at 10 o'clock, but St. Mary's should have, in the West, pretty good in Spokane. Decent home court advantage out there. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this update. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.